Well, hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us for another Facebook Live session. Today, we've got two of our own team members joining us. So I'd like to introduce Kelsey and Alex. They are part of our SEO team, and they have some great information on some changes that we're going to be seeing in 2021 and how it affects websites, how it affects ranking, and why everyone should, basically why they should care about it. So it's Google Updates is our subject, and we know that every few years, actually probably more frequent than that, but every couple of years Google makes some pretty major algorithm updates, and this is another one that we know is coming. So let's start. I'll kind of bounce back and forth between my two experts here and asking questions. But Kelsey, can I start with you? What are the core web vitals that we've been hearing so much about? When do they come out, and why should we care about them?
Well, actually, the web vitals are metrics used to measure somebody's experience with your website. They're not new, actually. They've already been out. They were released middle of last year, but now they're becoming more important. Google has recently announced that coming in 2021, that they're going to become part of their ranking algorithm. So they're becoming more important than what they were before. They're made up of three main metrics. One is measuring your loading time. The other one is your interactivity. So how long does it take before someone can actually do something on your website? Can they scroll down, or can they click on something on your site? And then the other one is to do with your visual stability, or being able to have something, if they're maybe the items are too close together, or you're trying to close something, or you're trying to buy something, or trying to do something, but you can't physically click on it because something else is in the way.
Oh, that's so annoying. That's the worst.
And it happens all the time. And these three different metrics are broken down into what's called an LCP, or largest contentful paint, meaning it measures your main elements, your loading performance for key visual elements, whether that be your navigation, your font styles, maybe main images, your logo, etc. You want that particular metric to be around 2.5 seconds. That's your ideal goal, to have that load in that percentage of time, especially if you're on a mobile device, maybe you're on a slower connection, something like that. You want to be able to have your site display fast. The second metric is referred to as your first input delay. So this is also to do with loading, but it's a little bit different because now it's measuring how quickly someone can do something on your site. So the metric here is obviously a little bit faster. You don't want to wait 2.5 seconds before you can scroll or click on something. You want that to be as fast as possible. This, obviously the goal on this one is about 100 milliseconds. That's give or take. That's the ideal world. Obviously for some sites, some verticals, different things, it's going to be a little bit longer. It's just the way it is. The third metric is the cumulative layout shift, and that's the one that has to do with the visual stability, or those different elements working together and or blocking one another from being able to interact. So another example on that is if you go to tap on a page and then it's gone, or it moves, or if you tap on something that's supposed to drop down but it doesn't, or now it drops up and then it blocks something behind it, and you're literally left not being able to interact with that site, which of course leaves it as a poor experience. So those are the three metrics that were already in place, but now they're becoming more important, more crucial to focus on.
So a lot of those things you described sound a little bit more on the technical side, like as a user, being the doctor or being the practice administrator. I understand page speed. I understand the concept of all of those things you're talking about, but I may not really understand the specifics of it. But I know that what is going to be important to them is how are these changes or these updates going to affect rankings? How important is it going to be? How much do they need to care about it?
I mean, it's going to affect it quite a bit, and I'll let Alex jump in a little bit later on that. But these metrics are gauging the experience, the overall experience someone's having with your site. So it's gone beyond simply having great content. It's gone beyond being the authority in your world or your domain. Now it's providing the absolute best experience for someone that wants to learn that content, that wants to read that content, that wants to assimilate that content. So it's taking that end user experience, not just providing something, but now it's how do you provide it? How are you giving?
Okay, thank you. So Alex, I'll let you take a turn here. Kelsey was talking a lot about the user experience, page speed. Can you dig a little deeper into how that's going to affect SEO or why it would affect SEO?
Yeah, and I'll back up for a second and kind of think of it from Google's side of things. If you think about Google's overarching goal as a search engine provider, the way they're going to be successful, the way they're going to make money, and the way they're going to retain their users, which they've done a fantastic job of, the fact that Google is a verb that we all know that just means internet. they've set a pretty high standard, but they have to remain there, because if they start to allow sites with a poor user experience, or with inaccurate results, or with false information, or with harmful information to rank, people are going to stop using Google and switch to other search engine providers, and they're going to stop making money. So, overarching goal for Google is to provide the best results, the most accurate results, and the best experience online. And that is how they continue to create the best experience for their customers. And so everything that we can do to align our sites and our standards with Google's overarching goal, because it really should be the same goal for us, for our practice, for our sites, for our customers, for our patients, is creating a great user experience. And so that's the reason that SEO factors into this. There's a lot of specific ranking factors, but overall, we want to create a better user experience, not just for SEO, but just for conversion in general. It creates a better experience with our brand. But some of the specific ranking factors include that over 70-80% of most of your guys' customer base, your patient base, is viewing your site on their mobile device. So if you haven't revisited that in a while, there's a good chance that there may be something probably not optimized or not loading efficiently or not loading very fast on a mobile device, especially with a standard 3G connection. Something to consider and look into is how fast is it loading on a mobile device. And with that's all part of this user experience update that we'll be rolling over into in May 2021. Also, if your site is an HTTPS secured, that little SSL certificate, at the top of your URL, on the top of the block. Anytime you have any sort of secure information, that was kind of the standard. It was usually only on bank sites, anywhere where money changed hands. But nowadays, it's a standard across every website, because nowadays, all information that we're sharing across needs to be secured and make sure that it may not be 100% confidential by any means, but we really want to make sure that the sites that we're on are secure and that we can trust them. And so Google uses that as a ranking factor as well as measuring if there's any intrusive interstitials, which means if there's any abrasive pop-ups and just loads of pop-ups or the way things are loading. I think we've all been on sites, perhaps we're trying to look up a recipe and it's just ad after ad after ad or pop-up after pop-up. It's impossible to actually read what's on the page or absorb any content. And so, although there is some balance there, or maybe a pop-up to get some lead captures might be still fine, but we definitely don't want to overdo it. And we want to be conservative to make sure that we're only using it when we need to benefit leads. But Google's analyzing all of these things and kind of packaging them into the core web vitals and the user experience update to make sure that everybody creates the best experience online, and that's the new standard. And the other thing to keep in mind is it's not actually new. As Kelsey brought out, this new update is coming up in May 2021, but it's more of a public release that Google can use so that internal teams can kind of leverage that to get the buy-in that they probably haven't been able to for a while. But it's currently ranking factors. So if we're thinking, let's push it off for 6 months or a year because it's not going to happen for a little while, it's actually happening right now. So if your site isn't up to date, if it's not modern, if it's not responsive, if it's not loading effectively, there's a good chance that it's affecting your performance in SEO.
Okay, so how could a practice improve these things? What would their goal be in seeing those things improve?
Yeah, so like Kelsey mentioned, with page speed, anything around 2.5 seconds or less is always a pretty good goal and a marker. There's a lot of different things that roll into that and can factor into that. If you have a lot of images, if you have a lot of videos playing on the site, those type of things are going to slow down the site. But there's also, they create a good user experience sometimes. So there's a little bit of a balance where some of those things are beneficial. I think sites with really amazing photography or really clean and crisp photos really stands out, but they don't always have to be as large as people put them on the site. Often they can be condensed, their file size can be condensed quite a bit. Some of that stuff happens on the back end. And then again, making sure that your site looks great on a mobile device. you haven't done it in a while, if you've only been visiting your site from a desktop computer because that's what you're using at work, pull up your phone and check out your site on your phone and see, does your site still look great on a mobile device? Are all the same images there? Is it the same URL? Is anything changing? Because that's actually how Google is indexing sites now. The mobile first index, or mobile first, the way Google is approaching websites is actually looking at it from the mobile device first and not the desktop. So if something is missing on the mobile device, Google's possibly not even indexing it or not even reading it themselves, because they're only looking at the mobile version, as that's where 70-80% of your patient base is viewing your site as well.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I'll give you a break. Thank you for all that, and kind of jump back to Kelsey for a second, because I know, Kelsey, with our clients, that's something that, like you guys have mentioned, we've been considering in the factors in our development for quite a while. And I know that we're revisiting it for all of our clients also based on this update. But what if someone is not a client of our roadside? How would an office manager or a practice know if their site needs, basically, how would they judge? Does it need to do something? Do I need to be more proactive? Because a lot of the things you guys described, some of them, yeah, totally can track ourselves. But some of it, I'm like, that sounds like more technical stuff that as an office team member, I wouldn't know. So what would you recommend to the practices that are working with other agencies, how they can make sure that their website's going to qualify and they're not going to get penalized in May?
The easiest way to do that is just simply ask your agency, what is your plan of action? Where is my site right now? And, what are your goals and what do you have in plan to get me where it needs to go? If you're a little bit more savvy yourself, if you want to try to test it yourself and see those stats or see those metrics, you can use the Google PageSpeed Developers tool or the Google Lighthouse tool, and you simply just put in your domain and run the scan. Obviously, looking at those metrics that come back, you may not be able to translate all of them or understand all of them, but you'll be able to see, okay, green, yellow, or red, and what do I need to work on? What do I need to improve? Alex mentioned something to keep in mind, that if your site's a couple years old, chances are it already has room for improvement, and or it was built in a way that was good or optimized for that particular time. Maybe you've got 8 different fonts that are being used on your site, or maybe you've got 23 megabytes of images because you took fantastic photos. And that's great, but is that delivery now of that content still the best way to give it to your patients or give it to the people that are coming to your website? So you can kind of do a physical technical audit, but also just a visual audit of your site and see if there's anything that could be improved.
So I'm gonna put you guys in the hot seat a little bit for a minute and play devil's advocate, because as I'm gonna take myself out of the roadside role and put myself as someone in the practice, and my website is maybe 2 or 3 years old, but we invested a substantial amount of money to make a very cool site 3 years ago, and now we're being told Google has changed again and we have to do something different. And some offices get a little frustrated, like, why are we not able to keep up with the changes? So, how could you kind of explain to an office that is feeling frustrated by the fact that their site is, okay, 5 years, I get, but if it's only 2 years old, why do I have to do something to it again? Alex, do you have any? I'll put you on the spot first. What would you say? What would you say? Because I know I hear that, and you guys probably do also.
Yeah, and in some cases, it can be improved. In other cases, it might need to be redone. And the best analogy I can think of for that is, when's the last time you bought a new phone? I mean, we think about how often phones go out of date, technology, and that's something that we are more than happy to spend $1,000 on or more for the new iPhone, because one, we either like it, but often after 2 years, 3 years, they slow down, they stop working effectively. The quality of life, because we're all using it on a daily basis, on a regular basis. Yeah. And we're willing to invest that for one person utilizing it. So if your business is not investing in reevaluating something that's being used and viewed and evaluated by hundreds or thousands of patients on a regular basis, on a daily basis, on a monthly basis, it's a serious thing to consider, because if we're willing to invest in a new phone every couple of years, there's a pretty good indication that our site needs to get revisited as well.
Okay, that's fair. I get that. I'm guilty of wanting the new shiny phone as soon as it comes out. So, Kelsey, I know that historically, Google has made some, usually they name them after an animal, I've noticed in the past, but they historically will make some kind of big algorithm changes. And when that happens, I hear from the practices that they get bombarded with, I'll call it scare tactics. Everyone that you can imagine is blowing up their email and calling their phone and saying, the sky is falling, their website's going to blow up, they're going to go completely invisible. So what would you say to that? How much legitimacy is there to that? Is it just a way to drum up business, or are they actually evaluating people's websites when they're getting emailed? Because they're probably going to get a lot of scare tactics.
Yeah, without a doubt. Absolutely, you're going to get these emails. These agencies seem to just come out of the woodwork, and they blanket with a template email that looks and reads the exact same way for every single person they send it to. Now, on the surface, is that a bad thing? No. As Alex and I mentioned, it is a factor, and it is going to be something that's taken into consideration for where their website's going to rank. But is the sky falling? No, it's not. So when you get these emails, and you'll get them, the easiest way is, again, go back to your agency. Talk to them, have a real conversation and say, look, here's what this says. Where am I currently? What are your goals? Where am I going to be? Or what is a realistic expectation? Just because the ideal statistic or the ideal metric is this by Google, you may not fall into that category, neither will your competitors. So find out specifically for where you are, what is your expectations, and then put a plan in action.
So that actually brings me to kind of one other quick question that I didn't ask, but we're talking primarily, our audience is the dental, medical, healthcare field. But this algorithm update, this change for Google's websites, it's not necessarily targeting medical healthcare practices in general. It's across the board. So I guess, does either one of you have any opinion of how you can speak to how much of that is all agencies, every website, and how much of it affects, more healthcare dental practices? Like, how does that come into play?
Yeah, I think maybe Alex will have something to jump in on that, but I will say it'll probably have a heavier effect on e-commerce sites, sites that are physically trying to sell goods and or have a high rate of interactivity. Those types of sites will probably be more affected. But it will affect the dental medical field. They have a lot of images, you have videos, you have these sources that do slow down a site. So there will be an effect on these types of websites as well.
Okay, thanks.
And to follow up on Kelsey's point there, there's kind of a bucket that Google classifies as ultra-sensitive industries or something they place high priority, again, because if they create inaccurate or false results, it causes serious damage or potential harm to people. I know that some of the top engineers at Google who are public facing on Twitter and stuff like that, they talk about the negative effects of if somebody is looking for doing cancer research for a sick relative or for themselves, and they get some inaccurate pill that somebody is trying to sell or some false research, that can kill somebody or negatively affect, and that's an ethical, serious decision that Google has to weigh on themselves. And so in the same way, anything that affects what they call your money or your life, they place a little bit more weight on. And so in the same way, it's a little bit different in the dental or medical industry, depending on the type of information we're putting out. We're not WebMD necessarily, but we do put out medical, information or helpful information, insights, explaining services, providing services for people. And so Google does take it a little bit more seriously than if you're some random blog about a random topic that's less weighty. And so this does affect the medical and dental industry, as well as e-commerce. Essentially anything where money changes hands or advice that affects your health or your life in some serious way like that.
Yeah, and thankfully, most of our medical dental practices are not going to have ads on their site. So that is one of the things that we're not, worried about our medical practices having pop-up ads or having things like that. So that's one benefit of the field we're in. So just to kind of summarize, I know that as a company, we are looking at our own clients' websites and doing a real deep dive analysis to make sure all of them are up to date and we're staying proactive. But for all of our other clients, I know that we're also, our non-clients, just anyone else in the community, I know that we're offering these website audits, which basically these two gentlemen right here are the two that are doing the work. If you guys want to have the analysis on your website. How is it doing? We are doing a complimentary, no obligation website analysis. I think they'll put a link here in the chat, and you can just simply reach out to us and ask us to evaluate your site and how it's performing. And we'll give back a complimentary report, and you guys can decide from there if there's any changes that need to be made based on that for 2021, or if you guys are sitting pretty. So yeah, feel free to reach out to us as a company, and I'll be happy to set up the task so that these two gentlemen do all the research for you and then I will report it back to you. So yeah, we're happy to help. And thanks, Alex and Kelsey, for taking time today. I know a lot of our audience has been asking about this. They've been hearing already the kind of hubbub of there's going to be a change, and that always makes people start to get a little nervous and anxious. So thanks for taking the time to break it down, and hopefully we can stay ahead of the game.
My pleasure. Thanks.
Thanks. Bye.